Hi, Lou here. So I just did a bunch of work to a Land Rover LR2. What happened was it was overheating. Sister-in-law called and said, hey, it's overheating. What do you think I should do? Long story short, coolant hose swelled. There was a slight oil leak, coolant hose swelled up, popped, leaked antifreeze everywhere. So replaced the hose. Next thing you know, it got warm again. Found that it got so hot it melted the thermostat housing, which is down inside there. Okay. Thermostat housing is plastic, so once the engine overheats, you can guarantee that the housing melts and the thermostat comes apart. Next, the cap was bad, wasn't holding pressure. You could push on the upper radiator hose and antifreeze would just shoot out of there. That's not good. All caps should always hold pressure. After all this was said and done, car kept overheating. Come to find out, the cooling fans would never turn on. This module failed. What happened when the module failed, or the motor failed first, one of the two. The motor had seized. I jumped the motor and it never turned on. I hit the motor a few times and it started spinning, but made a whole bunch of noise, which we knew it was bad. We're just trying to get by without it, which wasn't happening. Open up this module, come to find a big capacitor inside blue. Try to find a capacitor locally to fix it up, wasn't happening. Even if we did get this fixed, the motor was bad. You can't buy this stuff separate. The module you can find on eBay, but the fan you cannot. So we couldn't find it at the time. So we ended up buying the whole new module and fan. So now it all came together in one assembly, and this video will show you how to take it apart. But after all this, we got it running and working, and now it's good to go. So I hope this video helps somebody in the future. Okay, so here we have the new fan. It comes complete with the control module. There's only one connection because I have the low cooling option. If this were the heavy duty, there'd be two small fans there. A little bit of a pain to get out, but it can be done without removing cooling hoses or damaging anything. So now we're going to reinstall it. Okay, so the trick to getting the fan in without damaging anything is you want to slide it between the AC hoses. Okay? Kind of spread them apart and slide it down in between. That way you got plenty of room and you won't damage anything that's in there. And I don't know if I can get a light in there, but I got plenty of room all across where I'm not scrubbing the radiator. You don't want no bent fins. Okay? That's bad. Bent is bad. Got no bent fins. And we're almost down and seated. Alright, so I got the fan in. I'm going to show you what you probably already know. There's a lock-in tab there that you got to pull up to slide out. There's one at the bottom which just slides out once you get the top unlocked. Then there's the other side. And this one is a little bit harder to see. Here, you go upside down. There's the last lock-in tab for the fan. Okay, all you do is bend those out of the way and slide it up. I also unplugged this airbag sensor. Okay, crash sensor. That way we don't damage the wiring, and it gave us a little bit more room. So you can see again, we got the intake off. The AC compressor is taken off and moved to the side. Okay, air box is obviously out. Gave us plenty of room. Plus I went ahead and moved this power steering line out of the way too. Alright, I'm going to continue to reinstall. Okay, so I know I do my video a little bit backwards, but I can show you just as easy on the install as I can on the removal. So here's the intake on the front side. 2, 4, 6, 7 bolts hold the top, and at the bottom there's 2 that hold the bottom. You can get those through the bottom of the front bumper. Throttle body, Pcv valve, the hose connects to there. There's one electrical connector here, one connector there, one connector there, and one here for the map sensor. Okay, that's how the intake looks all removed. One thing I did do is I also capped off this coolant line with the rubber hose. As long as you put the coolant line higher than the reservoir, you won't lose any coolant. So So I'll go ahead and reinstall the intake now. One other thing I wanted to mention is on the throttle body is the connector. This one you squeeze the sides, or at least one side. There's a release right there. It's kind of a bad spot, but what you do first is you loosen all the intake bolts, and then you can move the intake around and access all the connections. So it's a little bit easier if you loosen the intake first so you can move it around. You really won't damage anything unless you're yanking on stuff, but that's the last connector I forgot to mention. Okay, so for the Pcv hose, you're going to remove it. This side here you don't want to touch. You want to squeeze here, and it spreads apart the lock-in tabs. You can see the little hooks at the tip right here on each side. So once you squeeze that, when you pull and finagle out, that just connects right there. They make things pretty easy with snap together, but removal with plastic. Just kind of squeeze that. Wiggle it back apart and it comes right off. Okay. Never want to pry on these with tools. Once they break, then you're getting a new one. There you go. Okay, the throttle body connector. Like I said, it's kind of a pain. You can see it way down there. Let me get this in here this way. It's right there. Okay. So once you have the intake loose, you can wiggle it around enough and move that coolant hose out of the way and reach your hand back there and unsnap it. Let's see if I can get a good shot here with the light. Okay, so throttle body connector. Reach down in there and you can move the hose out of the way and access the back side of the connector to unplug it. Okay, so the intake is installed. Got 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there, bolts there, total of 7 up top. Okay, and when you go underneath, you got 2 more right there. Okay, that bolt there and that bolt there. Then intake comes up. Of course, you got the old intake pipe that goes to the throttle body. Okay. So now I mentioned I had to remove the AC compressor. Alright, so I'll show you a little trick not everyone knows, or maybe they don't show you, but on the tensioner, I'll show you how to pry this. There's a little hole at the top. If you've ever done a timing tensioner on anything, usually comes with a metal pin. That's what I got there. Probably use a small drill bit or Allen key or something. But once you pry the tensioner up, you set that in that hole in there, and it locks the tensioner, so you got plenty of slack on the belt. You're not fighting the belt with the tensioner. Alright, and the AC compressor mounts with bolt here, bolt there, and one in the back that's hidden by the power steering line. So I'll show you how it looks when it's all installed. Alright, there's 2 connections to the compressor. Okay. So these guys right here. And almost everything and every car nowadays have individual connectors. You cannot mix them up. Very, very few manufacturers have connectors that you can mix up. Alright, so I'm going to reinstall that. Okay, so now that the compressor's installed, there's 1 bolt missing because there's a bracket that goes across here, which I'll show. So I know I'm doing this backwards. I just didn't think to record it ahead of time, taking everything apart. I was more worried about getting the car done. So the pry bar in here, up against the tensioner, and I can pry it. Okay, pry the tensioner. All right. So now that I got it pried, I'm gonna go ahead and take my pin out. Try to do this with one hand here. Okay, so here's the pin. I'll even measure it for you if you want. That way you know what size it is. And just let the tensioner back down. And that's it. The belt's tension again. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and reinstall the bracket on top of the AC compressor. Okay, so here's the bracket that covers the AC compressor. Go ahead and throw that on there now. Okay. Alright, so I got the AC bracket installed. 10 mil, 10 mil, 13 mil. funky little bracket. That's how it's installed. Okay, also don't forget the power steering line goes to this little L-shaped bracket here. Okay, bolts to this tab here. So I have to put that back on there too. And that comes off of there. The lines run all the way across the fender. There's this bracket in here that holds them on. Okay, bracket sits like this, right here. Okay, what it does is you pop it open, there's a little tab on the bottom, pop it open, and inside there's an 8mm at the top. It holds the power steering and both AC lines in it. Okay. Alright, so we've got the compressor lines installed. Bracket installed that holds the lines in place. Now we're going to reinstall the fuel rail. I removed this because it's easier to pull the intake out. You don't have to, I guess, but you're going to fight this corner with the, I'm guessing it's a pressure sensor on the end of the fuel rail. So one thing I always do is I always blow the hose clean. Also, here's the fuel pressure, here's the fuel inlet. It seats right up against there, that hole. So I always spray. Get a little shot, silicone spray. Don't worry, it's the kind that dries, so it's not going to hurt anything. It'll dry up a little bit. Okay, rotate it back around. There's the fuel coming out. And push it back down. Alright, one bolt there, one bolt there, one bolt there. They are 8mm. You also have the sensor over here you got to plug back in. So I'm going to get that installed. Okay, now the fuel rail is installed, bolted into place, connector snapped in. I'm going to go ahead and plug back in the coolant line, which essentially bleeds air back to the tank. It's pretty easy to disconnect. You just have to pull this back as you pull up on it. It'll release some clips in there and allow it to come out. Alright, so next is the air intake. There's a clamp up top, which there's some special pliers for, or just channel locks. And on the bottom is usually the same clamp, but we actually have a hose clamp on ours. So whatever you got there, use whatever tool you got. So this one should be on both ends, but on ours it's not. It's only on the top end. So this is going to install down like that to the pipe. One thing I want to mention is that this one is broken. Okay, I've done one of these before, and this should have another bolt here. The bolt actually lines up on, it's kind of hard to see. It will go right into here in this spot here. There's a little bolt hole. Really, really, really hard to see. Oh, I'm too high up. Lower. So, right down, right there. I'm not sure if it's recording. Nope, it's not. Right there, little bolt hole. Okay, should be a mounting bolt, but this one's broken. I believe it's an 8mm as well, so you just come in at a steep angle from up here with a swivel socket, a 1/4 inch. You can get down to that bolt. Okay, so we got the air filter box installed. It just pulls up. There's one clamp here, mass airflow sensor there. All right, you always want to make sure you pull the dipstick out too before you take the intake off. So again, we went ahead and changed the radiator fan that's shoved down in there. Looks like a big job, but it's really not that long. I think it took me an hour. Had the intake off a few times before, so I knew how to get to this stuff, but hoping this video helps somebody. Change the radiator fan that goes bad. One last thing I wanted to tell you is in this fuse box here, the fuse for the fan is actually an 80 amp fuse, and it's a strap style fuse, and it's right down in there. So it's a big guy in there in case you need to check power to the fan.